Peugeot's e-3008 is a stylish mid-sized full EV with real showroom appeal. This full battery model headlines the third generation 3008 range and will be difficult to ignore in its growing segment.
This is a dynamic looking car, and when you set off in it, familiarising yourself with the wrist flick responses possible via this tiny iCockpit style steering wheel, you initially feel that it might drive that way too. True, the previous generation version of this model would never have been a good segment selection for an enthusiastic driver, but everything about this replacement third generation 3008 design has been changed. Except, it turns out, the drive demeanour it delivers, which is still very much at the less involving end of this sector's very modest spectrum. Earlier 3008s were also like this, but with those, particularly the original first generation version, there was the compensation of a very comfortable standard of ride, which isn't really delivered here, particularly in the e-3008 EV variant we're driving today, a model rather hobbled by its prodigious weight. Electric vehicles are always heavy, of course, but this one's 2.1 tonne curb figure is particularly bulky, over 200 kilograms heavier than key rivals like the Tesla Model Y and the Renault Scenic E-Tech Electric, both of which have bigger batteries. The standard front-driven version supplied for this test has a 210 brake horsepower electric motor energised by a 73 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which when fully charged offers a range of up to 326 miles. If you select Sport, the most urgent of the three provided drive modes, the others are Normal and Eco, 62 miles an hour from rest takes 8.8 seconds en route to 105 miles an hour. If that's not enough, the STLA chassis has also been engineered for an even heavier long-range 98 kilowatt-hour battery, which needs a gutsier 227 brake horsepower motor and claims a range of 435 miles. The platform has additionally been engineered for a dual-motor all-wheel drive flagship version, which uses a 73 kilowatt-hour battery but offers a 316 brake horsepower combined output. As we said, it's the mainstream front-driven 73 kilowatt-hour e-3008 model we're trying here, which offers 3 levels of regenerative braking through its steering wheel paddles. But even the fiercest of these doesn't come close to replicating the abrupt one-pedal speed retardation off-throttle that you'll get from some rivals. As we suggested earlier, you'll feel this car's considerable weight through the turns, and the wrist flick responses promised by the little steering wheel don't translate into a rack with much feel when you most need it at speed through tight corners when you're running late. Then there's the rather wooden quality of ride we mentioned earlier, which hasn't been much improved by this e-3008 model switch to multi-link rear suspension from the cruder twist beam setup used by the 48-volt hybrid. Plus points with this Peugeot EV are regained with impressive levels of refinement, which would make this an excellent long journeying companion for EV customers unafflicted by the scourge of range anxiety. Now, we gave you the main EV range figures earlier, 326 miles for this front-driven 73 kilowatt-hour model, or 435 miles for the alternative long-range 98 kilowatt-hour front-driven model. If you choose this 3008, it'll probably primarily be because you like the way it looks. The sleek fastback styling, the distinctive slim 3D rear light panel, and the unusual cat's ear rear spoiler. From the side, you'll pick up the switch to fastback SUV coupe style design this time round. If you want a conventional boxier shape, well, that's provided by the 7-seat 5008 version of this design. Now, this is a bigger 3008 than its predecessor, 54 millimeters wider and around 100 millimeters longer than before, though at 4.5 meters in length, it's still one of the more compact cars in its mid-sized category. You might also think it to be a rather more stylish thing than some of its rivals, bereft of many body lines and featuring Range Rover-like hidden waistline seals. Wheel sizes are usually 19-inch, but with this e-3008 in this top GT trim, you get these aero-style 20-inch alloys, the kind of bigger range-sapping rims you wouldn't have thought an electric vehicle would want. GT spec also comes with this black diamond contrast colour roof, plus gloss black finishing for the wheel arches and lower sills, and a Peugeot shield on the front wings. The front is characterised by this distinctive 3-claw lighting signature and ultra-compact LED headlamps, though they'll only be full LEDs if you opt for this GT level of trim. The Peugeot shield sits proudly on a front grille intricately fashioned with a body-coloured cascading pattern. At the rear, that floating style spoiler we mentioned is supposed to enhance the curvaceous bodywork and emphasise the 1.89 metre width. The 3-claw light signature is familiar from other Peugeot models, and with this GT trim level, these clusters are of this 3D LED kind. As usual, of course, what's more important is what you can't see. The stiff, sophisticated STLA medium platform that undergirds this third generation model. Walk up to the car and the lights flash as it automatically unlocks itself. Will it be as avant-garde inside? In a word, yes. Peugeot says it's set out to deliver a high-quality lounge-like experience. Well, it's certainly nothing like anything you'll have tried before. A cockpit-like feel is delivered by this unusual fabric-trimmed central spine, which flows towards the separated dashboard. That dash is also quite different. Instead of the usual central monitor stuck awkwardly in the middle of the fascia, there's now this smart, floating, curved 21-inch HD panoramic screen that not only seamlessly combines the instrument and infotainment displays, but is also slightly raised so that it can act as a head-up display too. Behind it is this elegant concave aluminium panel onto which shades from the ambient lighting system are projected. It's all very high-end and unusually designed. There's a vast swathe of sustainably sourced fascia fabric flowing from the dash into the doors. The door switchgear panels angle down while the centre console spine angles up and has hidden storage in this lower section. Perhaps most notably, Peugeot has persisted with an evolved version of the previous model's so-called iCockpit front-of-cabin layout. This sees use of a tiny steering wheel, here redesigned, over the top of which, rather than through the spokes of which, you're expected to view the instruments. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. To start with, you'll probably keep reaching down to find the e-toggle gear selector. To no avail, because it's been reduced in size and relocated to an almost vertical van-like position next to the starter button on the fascia. You control many of the infotainment display's functions via this row of virtual iToggle switches on this narrow, smaller screen below the centre vents. Swipe across its surface and you'll find that there are 10 different shortcut options, twice as many as with the old car. These can be set to deal with basic things like cabin temperature or fan speed, or maybe more eclectic things that are just for you, like navigate home or a one-shot click to your favourite radio station. And on that subject, the cabin can be set for up to 8 different driver profiles, bespoke with ambient lighting, navigation and audio settings. Unlike Tesla, Peugeot still thinks you need column stalks, and it's via the ends of these that you control what you view on the instrument screen ahead. The key info on that screen covers digital speed and gear selection. Just above this, you're briefed on driver assist functionality and the prevailing speed limit, while just below the digital speedo lies a Charge Eco power meter just above a little Peugeot French tricolour. There are various instrument screen layouts selectable via a click on the end of this left stalk. 3 of these move the digital speedo with its associated info to the left to make extra space for either nav mapping, a car graphic with a battery indicator, or a larger Charge Eco power meter. There's also a minimalistic layout with just a few basic readouts, or you can have the digital speedo flanked by circular information gauges with audio info and a battery meter on the left and trip data on the right. The right circle data you see controlled by clicks on the right hand wheel stalk. Now, pretty much anything else that you might need to know will be on this central infotainment display, another thing completely redesigned for this third generation model. We've talked about the iToggle virtual keys that work with it, but of course you can touch the screen surface too, or interact with this monitor via voice control. The home screen is minimalistic with temperature meters either side. Swipe left and those meters flank a nav map. Swipe left again and rows of little icons appear to the right of a car graphic with a battery indicator. These icons include what Peugeot calls an application drawer, which on this e-3008 incorporates an energy section. Via that, you can set charging times, view an energy flow meter, monitor the powertrain's energy use, or using a history section, graphically oversee recent consumption in miles per kilowatt hour over the last 30, 60 or 300 miles. Enough on screens. What else might you need to know? Well, the redesigned dynamic seats are much more supportive than the chairs in the previous generation model, though you don't get lumbar adjustment unless you stretch to this top GT trim. They can feature new electric adaptive side bolsters for increased lateral support and have been approved by the AGR, that's the German campaign organisation for healthier backs. You sit quite high, build quality is good, and the materials used feel classy. Plus, despite the avant-garde design, the ergonomics are fine. Crucial controls like audio volume, hazard flashes, and the drive mode controller reside on the near part of this center console spine, which as it nears the dash spears away to the left with shortcut climate functions. Amongst these is an added quick launch feature which automatically sets the cabin for rapid heating or cooling. What about cabin storage? Well, Peugeot says there are up to 17 storage spaces with an overall volume of nearly 34 litres. These include the hidden lidded cubby that we mentioned earlier, which sits just ahead of the cup holders on the lower part of the centre console and includes twin USB ports and a 12-volt socket. There's also an overhead sunglasses compartment, deep door pockets and ticket clips in the sun visors, but irritatingly, as with the previous design, right-hand drive models like this one have a glove box halved in size by the fuse box. There doesn't seem to be any priority amongst Peugeot's designers to sort this issue out. A wireless smartphone charging mat is standard and can Bluetooth link to handsets simultaneously. For better call quality, Peugeot has equipped the cabin with 2 microphones, one above each front seat occupant. And you can, of course, wirelessly connect your handset using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Time to take a look in the rear seat. Will that switch to fastback coupe SUV styling hurt this third generation 3008 here? Well, you'll probably have to duck a little more to get in. But once inside, headroom's actually not too bad, provided you decide not to pay extra for the optional panoramic glass roof. Now, this bench doesn't do anything clever like slide or feature a reclining backrest, but the high-mounted front seats make it easier to slip your feet beneath them, which is just as well because despite this Mark III model's extra 64mm of wheelbase length, leg space isn't actually that generous for a car of this size. A central adult wouldn't be particularly comfortable. If there are only 2 of you, you'll be able to use this central armrest, which incorporates twin cup holders and a pen tray, but is only standard with top GT trim. Little rear quarter-light windows help with the rather dark ambience, and there are netted seat back pockets, deep door bins, and little beady overhead reading lights. Plus, below the centre vents, you'll find USB connectivity, a 12-volt socket, and a couple of cubbies. There are coat hooks on the B-pillars, but the rear headrests are of the sort that dig uncomfortably into your back until you raise them. Let's finish with a look out back. The tailgate's quite heavy, so it's a pity that it doesn't get powered operation with volume Allure spec. Where it is electric, on this GT version, you can activate it with a swipe of your foot beneath the bumper and tailor the height it raises to suit your garage ceiling. As with the previous generation 3008, the cargo area is generously sized with a capacity of 588 litres, though that drops to 470 litres on all-wheel drive e-3008 models. Because the STLA medium platform isn't bespoke just for EVs, this e-3008 model offers no underbonnet frunk space for the charging leads, so to try and make up for that, lots of space is provided beneath this boot floor, though only because Peugeot declines to provide any kind of spare wheel. Here's a nice touch. Little sidewall catches that allow you to position this height adjustable boot floor at 45 degrees so that you can more easily get at what's underneath. Why don't all brands provide that? There are recessed spaces either side of this cargo area, though only very small ones, so that you can more easily fit bulky items in widthwise, like say a golf bag or a pushchair. As well as the usual bag hooks and tie downs, there's a 12-volt socket and an elasticated strap on the left and a light on the right. The ride height is quite a way off the ground though, 774 millimeters, so older dogs may need a hand up. The backrest can't be made more vertical to more easily get awkwardly shaped pieces of luggage in, but if you've long items like skis to accommodate alongside a couple of rear-seated passengers, you'll be glad of its convenient 40-20-40 split. When it's flat, up to 1,663 litres of space is available from this front-driven model. It's taken the brand a long time to bring us an all-electric version of this SUV, but this e-3008 is a much more credible product than an EV based on the old second-generation model would have been, not least because of the way it looks. Peugeot has become a byword in recent years for interesting design, and this third generation 3008 doesn't disappoint in that regard, though we think its newfound fastback vibe rather overlaps with the similarly sized 408. We're disappointed the new STLA medium architecture doesn't incorporate the ultra-rapid charging 800-volt architecture you'll find in Korean competitors. And like all its most obvious rivals, the e-3008 is pricey, plus it's particularly heavy, which doesn't help ride quality. But if you can look past these caveats, there's still a lot to like with this elegant Gallic contender. And if you can't stretch to it but like the look, there's always the hybrid versions. Either way, Peugeot hopes to have you